Welcome back to Unplugged with Mel. I'm your host, Mel Mosier. If you tuned in previously, you might recall our insightful conversation with Doug Province, the general manager of Easy Rider. He shared valuable insights on leadership, volunteerism, mentoring, and the journey of returning to college as an adult. Today, we're thrilled to introduce our next guest, Mike Moore, the CEO of Recourse Communications. His story is nothing short of extraordinary, and I'm confident that this episode will leave you feeling inspired and motivated. Don't forget, you can catch all our episodes on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify. Thanks for joining us. With Mel, and our special guest today is Mike Moore. Welcome.
Thank you, Mel. Great to be here.
How was your flight today?
Flight was, anytime I take off and I land, the flight is great. I actually have a huge fear of flying. Have had one for years, but the last couple of years it's just like gone away. I don't know, it's crazy. So I actually enjoy flying now.
From New Orleans, right?
Yeah, I've been with my brand new grandson who's 4 months old. We just came back from a religious festival that we go to every year, and we were 3 hours from New Orleans. We were in Orange Beach, Alabama. Okay. So we were 3 hours to go back with my grandson, or 10 hours to go back to Florida. So we decided to go back with my grandson, with the grandbaby.
Smart move.
And we'll be there for another couple of weeks. And
treasure it while you can.
Oh, believe me, we're taking every second of it.
Well, I wanted to bring you on because we've gotten to meet each other, and we met this summer.
Yeah.
In Vegas at the National SHRM, and you were a vendor there at the expo, and we got to meet through Robert Segura.
Good old Robert.
And so Robert and I worked together through PB SHRM, and for whatever reason, he just thought we needed to meet. And then we met at the Golden Nugget at Vic and Anthony's.
Yep. Very, very good memory.
And it was good food.
Great meal.
Great meal. Conversation.
Yep.
And it was good that Robert, man, he's a network guy that can bring people together. And then he's like, I've done my part, enjoy. And so since then, we've been back and forth talking. And you're coming out to PB SHRM to speak next month on the 14th. I think it was like Post and Pray. And it's recruiting and talent record, all acquisitions and stuff. And we're excited to have you. And so I love that connection and networking has allowed that opportunity. And you're here today with HR Southwest, and you're sponsoring the luncheon for the ambassadors, which is another thing Robert's doing. See, full circle.
Correct. Correct.
And so that's just, you've been through a few conferences now. What do you think of the conferences?
Well, I've been doing conferences for years. I've probably done 20, 25 national SHRMs.
Oh, wow.
Over the years. I mean, I've been doing this 39 years, and a whole ton of local ones. And we've done, we used to be a regular participant in the, it was a worldwide technology show in Vegas, and I can't remember the name of it. Went completely blank. But anyway, we used to be there every year, and we did job fairs there, and had a partnership with the organization that ran the event. Mm-hmm. And so and we were sponsors of job fairs for many years. We put on probably 600, 700, 800 job fairs over the years as well. So a lot of work in the convention, trade show space. Very, very tiring. A lot of work.
I've been to a few, and I'm wore out. Yeah. I get a vacation from the trip when I get home. But you just said 39 years and stuff, and I just celebrated my 39th birthday Tuesday. So as long as I have been alive, you have been doing this. Yep. That's incredible.
Yeah, it seems some of it seems like yesterday.
Yeah,
and yet some of it seems like it will never end.
Well, what I like to do for my special guest is I let you tell your story, your bio of your work, community, projects, family, all that jazz. So, Mike, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, I was born and raised in Providence, Rhode Island. I was adopted by two absolutely wonderful people. And I always was told that I was adopted. It was never a problem or a dirty word. and was always very comfortable with with that fact. Had a great family. Grew up in an Italian family, big Italian family, big Italian family. Just incredible amounts of love and affection and support. Still, all my aunts and uncles have passed, but still tremendous relationships with cousins and second and third cousins as well. My birth mother actually found me about 33 years ago,
Oh, wow.
along with my 4 half sisters as well, and that was a interesting experience that we kind of moved through over the last 33 years. And I just about a year ago just looked up my birth father, and we've met and have a relationship that is developing. Not because I needed it, but my parents had both passed. There was an opportunity to at least check it out without hurting anybody, and to connect.
Yeah.
And I met a very wonderful man, and he's getting up there in age, and he has his illnesses. So hopefully we'll be able to spend some time together, as time goes on. I went to classical high school in Providence, and went to Rhode Island College in Rhode Island. I always wanted to be an attorney. That was my goal.
Attorney to CEO.
Attorney to CEO. A lot of people always told me that I had the gift of gab and I was a salesperson, and you can't fight DNA. So I was my goal was to be an attorney, but I got out of college and I just could not bear thinking of going to school any longer than I had.
I can see that.
So I started working for a friend of mine who owned a watch and jewelry repair business.
Okay.
And went to work for him. And first day on the job, I said, who would be my biggest clients? Who? Because I didn't know the industry. I'd gotten into an industry I'd never been in. This was basically my first sales job out of college. And he said Zales and Montgomery Wards. So my first phone call out of his office in West Warwick, Rhode Island, was to Zales Jewelers in New York City. And that first day I got in touch with, I believe it was Abraham Zale, who was the president and CEO of Zales Jewelers. And within a week I was in his office in New York City on Avenue of the Americas, telling him about this concept that we had, which he bought into, and we ended up signing them as an account, then ended up signing Montgomery Ward as an account. And within about 12 months, I got the owner of the company more jewelry and watches to repair than he could repair. So my job was expendable, and I was 6 months from getting married, and I started looking for a new job. And I answered a little tiny, they used to call them agate ads, line ad, in the Boston Globe, and the headline was sales management. And the body of the ad talked about this growing publisher of local periodicals in Boston. I answered the ad through I believe it was a resume stamped with a stamp, mailed it. And a couple days later, I got a phone call from the owner of the company, who had just actually bought out the original owner, and asked me if I would come in for an interview. So I went in for an interview. The first person matter of fact, the office was a 3-bedroom condo in downtown Boston.
Okay.
And it wasn't an office, it was a bedroom that he was servicing as an office, and his office was in his bedroom, and the sales office was one of the other bedrooms, and the graphics area for the publications that we printed was in another bedroom. So it was a 6-person company. Had my interview. Next day, he called me up and offered me a job. I believe I got it was $200 a week, draw against commission, which means if I didn't sell, I didn't eat. I knew nothing about advertising sales. I knew nothing about it. Was one of the publications that ended up becoming the main publication was the Job Finder. So you had the Job Finder, you had the Irish American, and you had the Senior Times. These were the 3 periodicals that they published. And we, as salespeople, we could sell into all of them, but I gravitated for some reason towards the Job Finder. And it was a weekly publication tabloid that had all help wanted advertising in it.
Okay.
And it was circulated through high traffic areas like supermarkets and chain stores and laundromats and wherever somebody would be during the course of a normal day. And we sold recruitment advertising into this publication. Concept I thought was great. After about 2 weeks on the job, I hadn't made a sale yet. And the original founder of the company, John, was there helping us salespeople kind of learn the trade. And I said, John, I said, everybody I'm talking to wants to see a copy of the job finder. They don't want to buy an ad without seeing it. I said, and I would think the same way. I would feel the same way. I'd want to see this thing before advertising it. And he said, Mike, I make you a guarantee. He said, I'll give you all the job finders you want. You pay the postage. You send the mail out to your prospects. You won't sell one of them that you send it out to. I said, okay, fair deal. So he gave me 100 job finders. He gave me envelopes. I had to pay the postage, which probably cost me $50-$60. I sent out 100 job finders. A week later, 2 weeks later, I'm calling these people, trying to follow up on what I had sent. Nobody called me back. Nobody bought. And I was very frustrated. I was 4 weeks into the job, 3 to 4 weeks into the job. I think it was a Friday afternoon. And I was sitting at my desk, and I had just had it. I was frustrated. I was upset at myself, and I just felt like I, had to leave, had to bail. It just wasn't working. So I called up my dad, who was my confidant and my hero and my mentor and a lot of other things. And I said, Dad, I'm at work. I just packed my briefcase up. I said, I'm going to leave. I said, this just isn't working. I've gone 4 weeks. I've sent out all these things and nobody's calling me back. Nobody's buying. I said, I can't do this. And he said, open your briefcase, take your stuff out and go back to work. And I said, yes, sir. Love you, Dad. Hung up on him. Later on that afternoon, I made my first sale to a company in Woburn, Massachusetts. It was a 2x3 display ad for $79.95. And that's how my career got started with the company. I became the sales manager 4 to 5 months later. We hired a consultant to come in and look at some of our business stuff that needed to be looked at, our distribution, the layout of the magazine, things like that. The owner of the company hired this individual. So this individual and I started working together. I was 23, 24 years old, newly married. He was 62, 63, had been in publishing for a long time. And we started working together. And I started hiring salespeople. We had 5, and then we had 8, and then we had 12, and then we had 15. And really funny story, this was all telemarketing, and we sat in a big circle with our desks and our phones. There were no computers back then. And we had one callback line. And the callback line was in the middle of the circle. So it was a phone with a long cord that sat in the middle of the circle. Okay. And when the phone rang, everybody, all the salespeople would get up and jump to get it. and obviously only one person could be on the callback line at a time. Make a long story short, this individual, Irv, who was this consultant that was hired, came up to me at the end of a business day, and he said, can I talk to you? And I said, yeah. And he said, Charlie, who was the owner of the company, who had bought it out from the original founder, asked me if I would be interested in buying the company from him. And he said, I'm not going to buy it without you because you're the sales engine. He said, would you be interested in coming into this deal with me? I said, I'd be thrilled. I was taking paychecks home of $2,000 to $3,000 to $4,000 a week. My dad was asking me what I was really doing during the day. I was making more than him. He was a controller for a company, and I was making more than my dad was. It had clicked. I mean, the whole concept of recruitment advertising and everything that went along with it just clicked. Make a long story short, Irv sat down with Charlie. I was being brought in at 10% ownership. The next thing we have champagne in the refrigerator. Everybody in the company knows what's going on. The company's going to be bought. Irv's going to own it. I'm going to be part owner, only 10%. And we were going to celebrate after Irv did the final deal in Charlie's office. Well, next thing I know, I hear yelling. Irv comes flying out of Charlie's office and he said, "That's it, the deal's off." He looks at me, he said, "I'm going to Florida, I'll call you in a couple weeks." So they're my dreams of being an owner of this company and this product that I loved and this industry that I had this newfound passion for, and just an understanding that was just crazy unique, because I really didn't know what I was doing, but I did. I'm sitting at my desk, everybody's looking at me because everybody knew what was going on. And I got up from my desk, I walked into Charlie's office and I shut the door. And I said, "Charlie," I said, "I understand that you had talked to Irv about buying the business." I said, "I'm really disappointed that you didn't come to me." He said, "Well, Mike," he said, I don't know if you have the wherewithal to buy the business." And he said, "I know Irv does. He's older. He's more mature. He's probably has the financial resources and the experience." And I said, "Well, Charlie," I said, let me just say this. I want a shot at buying the business. And if you don't allow me to, I'll be leaving." And as soon as that came out, and I mean, I was doing great. I mean, I was making more money than I could ever imagine in my life.
Bold statement.
I was just wildly excited about the potential of the business. It became a passion of mine. And as soon as it came out of my mouth, I wanted to put it back.
I was about to ask you, how did you feel about saying it? Yeah.
And I said it, and he looked at me, and he said, "You're serious?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, do you think you have the wherewithal?" I said, "Well, I'm not going to know if I don't try." So he gave me the financials. My dad was an accountant. Around this point in time, my dad had been diagnosed with cancer, and was just starting treatments. And I brought the financials home and showed them to my dad, and my dad said, "This company's a mess." And I said, "I know, Dad, but the potential is there. The potential is through the roof. I know it. I know it."
Felt it.
So anyway, I had a couple of other people that I know, CPAs, look at the financials. Everybody said the same thing: don't touch it. We agreed at a price of buying the business, and myself and the owner, and I had to come up with I think it was an $80,000 non-refundable deposit.
Oh wow, it's pretty good money back then.
Very good money back then. So I leveraged everything I had.
And you just got married,
Had
right?
just gotten married. Took our marriage money.
What did Sam think about that?
Sam was all in.
Oh, I love that.
Sam was absolutely all in.
She supported you.
She did. Again, as I said, for a year and a half, I was making great money. I sold one of my Rolexes, my Rolex that I had bought, that I had worked very hard for, and we had 3 weeks to get the deal done. The selling price of the business was $325,000, $80,000 deposit down, which was non-refundable. We went to all the. My dad helped me go to all the banks, get the money. We had everything lined up. 2 days before the deal was to be done, the bank pulled out on our business loan, and I had no way of funding the business.
Goodness.
It was a little bit longer than that. It was probably about 4 or 5 days. At church, we had this individual who attended our church, and he was a extremely accomplished businessman. He had a worldwide patent on technology in the oil and gas industry, and the guy was loaded. And I said, let me go talk to Charlie and see if Charlie will help me. So I went up to Charlie and I told Charlie the position I was in. He said, "You know what, Mike?" He said, "I could write you that check tomorrow morning out of my private account." He said, "But I'm not going to do it." He said, and I've got a lot of confidence that you're going to be successful someday. He said, "But today's the day it starts." and it starts by me saying no to you. He said, you'll get it done. Go find the way. So, and I wasn't upset at him. I took the counsel, took the advice, went on, and it was 2 days before the deal was going to be nixed, which means we lose our 80 grand, and we don't know what we do at that point in time. I'm sitting at my dad's house having dinner. My dad, my mom, myself, and Sam, my wife. And I said, Dad, I'm out of options. I've tapped everybody, every person, everything that I know. I said, I have no clue where to come up with 240 grand. That's a lot of money. A lot of money today. There's a lot of money back then. Yeah. He said, have you asked your aunt? Now, my aunt and my grandmother, my aunt was single. She lived with my grandmother next door. And I said, no. I said, Aunt Eleanor doesn't have that kind of money. He said, go ask her. Now, as I mentioned earlier, my dad had cancer. We didn't know what was going to go on with him. So, asking my dad for money, my mom and dad for money was not an option at that point in time. I went to my aunt's house, and she walked in the door, and she was in the kitchen cooking or baking something. And I said, Aunt, I said, I got a question for you. She said, what? I said, I need 240 grand. She said, Mike, she said, I would give it to you right now if I had it, but I don't have that kind of money. And I said, how about your house? And she looked at me and she said, it's yours. If you can get it mortgaged, go ahead. In 2 days, I asked for a couple of day extension from the owner of the company, which he gave me. A couple of days later, we mortgaged her house for $210,000. We got the money, we bought the business, and then she was paid back within a year.
Wow.
That was the beginning of what has been 39 years of incredible ups, incredible downs, life lessons that could never be duplicated. But my wife and I have always agreed that the biggest trials make you stronger. And the more trials you have, the more challenges you have, the better you can address them as they hit you head on. So our business started in a very humbling way. My wife and I have always said for years that we believed God has blessed us very mightily, and we've seen that in hundreds of occasions. And that was the beginning of it.
Wow. You just answered like 4 of my questions with that story, and it is profound. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a bit of it, and we're going to expand upon it. First, I'd like you to talk about Sam and your family.
My wife is my wife's my rock. We met on Cape Cod in 1982. I fell in love with her the first time I met her, and we dated for I think a year and a half or so, and we're married on July 29th in 1985. Have 2 incredible children, Erin, my daughter, who's 31, Brendan, my son, who's 27, who are just incredible people, incredible children, incredible parent now. My son Brendan just had our first grandbaby.
I remember meeting you this summer and you were just beaming, ready for this grandson to be born.
Well, I've got you don't see a lot of people that have character these days. It's just one of those things that's I think is missing in society. And I've got 3 people in my life that show me great examples every day. My son, my daughter, and my wife, of people that have outstanding character and believe in their faith and live their faith every day.
When you were going through those moments of doubt and failure.
Excuse me, I get emotional when I talk about
this is unplugging.
Like
this is unplugging with Mel.
I get unplugged.
And that's been the moment of recording other guests and stuff. I think it's just coming natural. It's organically growing that way. But when you get to tell your story, it moves you when you self-reflect on it.
Oh yeah. There's a lot of pain. There is a lot of pain. A lot of great times, great successes, climb big mountains, but there's an awful lot of pain along the way as well, personally, professionally, and any other way that
you can think of.
Yeah.
When you were talking about the doubts and the failures in growing a career and running a business, I heard a few things about your dad and stuff. How did you stay motivated and maintain your focus on your objectives you had set for you in order to obtain the success you have now?
As I said, I caught this bug of this industry about 3 to 4 months into it, and just felt it's just so confident about my understanding of the space, even when it was even when it wasn't very mature.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always been competitive. I've played a lot of sports. I've never been on a lot of championship winning teams,
mm-hmm.
But I've always been very competitive, and I work really hard. I played in the sports that I played really hard. I always believed in giving 110%. Anybody that knows me will tell you that part of my DNA is I'm a very, very hard worker, and I do what needs to get done. I know that things don't happen by standing still,
mm-hmm.
and that hard work oftentimes produces very good things. So being focused, working hard, being consistent, and trying to never make the same mistake twice. Somebody always asks me, how do you run a business? How do you? And I tell them, you try not to make the same mistake twice, but that's very difficult. It's very difficult. I mean, there's millions of companies that start every year and millions of companies that fail every year. And it's not because it wasn't a good product, or it wasn't a needed product, or everything. There's a whole lot of things that make up a successful business, and it ain't easy. It ain't for the faint of heart. I tell people who think they want to own their own business that they really need to think about that before they do it, because it is an enormous commitment, not unlike marriage or parenting or other things like that.
What advice would you give to others who are looking to share their own stories and pursue their own passions?
Well, I mean, that's, to me, that's a normal part of life. But that's to me. We all have our DNA that makes us who we are. And, I am a byproduct of the parents that created me. And for whatever reason, I have that as part of my DNA. But then I was also brought up in an environment where I was encouraged by parents and others to strive, to work, to do, to be positive, to do the right thing, or attempt to do the right thing all of the time. And not everybody's built that way. Not everybody is a leader. In order for there to be a leader, there have to be people that are not leaders, that are following. If you have that burning desire and you never try to accomplish it, then you're making a big mistake by not at least trying. But
what about someone that hasn't found their passion? How does one continue to go through life on the hopes that it's going to happen?
My father-in-law is 86, love him to death. He retired from Ford Motor Company after 40 some odd years. And at his retirement party, he told everybody, he said, I hated every day that I went to work for 46 years.
Wow.
But I did it because I had to. I had to provide for my family. And, the thing we do most in our lives is work. I mean, we work more than we sleep. We work more than we vacation. We work more than we parent. Your working hours take up a very healthy part of your life.
Of it, yeah.
And I've always told people that that they need to be doing something they love. How you find that? That's a great question. If I could answer that question, I suppose I'd have a greater business than the one that I do.
Well, I think in someone's journey, if they're struggling and they're lost and they haven't found it, they got to keep trying things and finding out they don't like it.
Yep.
I think that's the key of it, because I'm on the younger side of it, but
my 20s, and it was rough.
Yep.
But I did it.
Yep.
I found out that I wasn't great at certain things. I
Yep.
found out what I could in the role. I'm really good at this.
Yep. And then that changes over time. I mean, I'm terrible at things today that I used to be very good at. I am terrible at things today. But then there are some things that I am much better at.
That you've gravitated more of, that you've solidified in you.
I mean, you know, if you pay attention to your mistakes and you learn from them, you know, my faith is a very, very, very big part of my life. And conversion, if people understand that term, is a marathon. It's a lifelong process. It's not an event. It's not a moment. It is a lifelong process of learning and changing and growing and being and doing. But yeah, you got to be. You know, you don't have to, but you have to be willing to take risks. And I mean, that's something I've done in my business life, my entire life, is taking risk. I mean, we've changed our business probably 10 different times over the last almost 40 years. Just
evolve and adapt.
Evolve and adapt. Evolve or die. As a matter of fact, I'll tell a story. We had a very big contract with a company called Ziff Davis Publishing. And they ran, in the event that I was trying to think of earlier, the technology event was Comdex. And Comdex happened every year in Vegas. They had 300,000 to 400,000 attendees. They had 10,000 booths. And the promoter of that event was Ziff Davis out of New York. And we started working with them, and we signed this long-term contract with them to put on job fairs at Comdex, to publish employment guides at Comdex, which is part of our business model. And we hit a very rough patch in 2008, 2009, along with everybody. Came very close to going out of business. As a matter of fact, I had to go to Rhode Island for the passing of my aunt, who mortgaged her house for me so we could get into business. And when I left on a Wednesday, it was entirely possible that the bank was coming in and calling in our note and would lock the doors on us on Friday morning. Her funeral was Friday morning, and I called back to my office to my CFO, Pat, and he said, "Well, Mike, I got in the front door this morning. There were no padlocks there, so I guess we got a reprieve for another week." Anyway, we got through that, and our main contact at Ziff Davis, about a year later, we had to get out of our contract, and they graciously let us out with a little bit of payment. But this contact from Ziff Davis called into our office, and our receptionist Connie answered the phone, and he said, "Connie," he said, "this is Dick," and Connie knew who he was, and he said, "Hey, Dick," and Dick said, "You know," he said, "when I made this call, I had a pit in my stomach as to whether or not somebody would pick up the phone at RCI. But when you answered the phone," he said, "I wasn't surprised." Another one of those just incredible moments in business that, you know, you got to be willing to take risks, and sometimes the fall is hard.
Well, in your journey and recognizing that we all need support and guidance on the journey, can you share a few mentors and colleagues who played a significant role in providing you the wisdom and support in your life?
Yeah, Charlie Guile, who I mentioned earlier, was one of them. The guy that said no to me, that he wouldn't give me.
Who knew a no would encourage you so much.
He wouldn't give me the money, and I loved Charlie for that, because Charlie taught me a very valuable lesson. My attorney, Tom Carey in Boston, great story there. We were selling our company in 2000 and my partner Irv, who ended up purchasing the company with me. Remember, I was supposed to get 10%. Well, when we purchased the company, we were both 50-50. In 1989, the market went south, and Irv and I the marriage wasn't good. If I can tell your viewers one thing, stay out of partnerships. They never end good. But anyway, Irv and I were at loggerheads. He wanted to do things with the business, and I wanted to do things with the business, and finally he said, "Okay, buy me out." So we ended up finding this partner in Maryland who did the same thing as us. He had an employment magazine in Maryland. And we started this conversation with him, and within 3 or 4 months, we had agreed to sell our business to him. And he was going to come in, give us the funding to buy Irv out, and then we were going to sell the business to him. Well, we were working with an attorney in Boston, and the day we went in to sign this deal with this company out of Maryland, my attorney couldn't be at the meeting, the attorney I had been working with. And in walks this disheveled guy with hair all over the place, a wrinkly jacket by the name of Tom Carey. Tom was my new attorney that came in. He said, look, he said, I know we don't know each other. I know we're just meeting. I know this is a important day for you. He said, but I understand what this deal is all about. He said, you got to trust me that I'm going to do the right thing for you. I said, Tom, do I have a choice? So Sam and I go into this meeting, this big boardroom in downtown Boston with our brand new attorney that we had just met. And we were going through the details of the deal that we were making with this company. And a point in the meeting came and Tom said, can we step outside? I need to step outside to talk to my client. And they said, sure. So we stepped outside. We went in a small office and Tom closed the door and said, don't do the deal. I said, Tom, what do you mean don't do the deal? I said, I can't make payroll next week. We have to do this deal. He said, you hired me, or you hired our firm to help you. He said, I'm telling you, you cannot do this deal. You will regret it the day after you sign the contract. And I look at my wife looks at me. I mean, we literally did not have money to make payroll that next week. And I said, Tom, I have to trust you. We go back in the meeting, we sit down, he tells the company and the attorney that unless this and this and this changes in the agreement, that we were gonna back out of the deal. They folded up their briefcases, walked out of the office, and Sam, myself, and Tom, the attorney, are sitting there just like,
What just happened?
Mm-hmm. Our business is gone. Tom said, can I buy you lunch? I said, well, Tom, you better buy me lunch because I don't have money to pay for myself. So we went to lunch. Tom talked us off the ledge, gave us some encouraging words. We did make payroll that following week. And we ended up negotiating with our partner and doing the deal and then buying RCI completely from our partner in 1989.
Wow.
Tom was
Big pivotal role in that.
big pivotal role, and still today is our corporate attorney and talks me off the ledge at times.
Isn't that great to have?
Oh yeah, it's incredibly important. My dad obviously was my number one mentor, and best father anybody could have ever had.
How long has he been gone?
1989, a long time.
Oh wow.
Yeah, he died.
What a busy year.
That was which leads into another story. We my dad had liver cancer, and we in our faith we have this religious festival that we attend every year in the fall, and we just came back from it from a couple of weeks ago. And Sam and I were going to Florida for this religious conference, but my dad kept on getting worse, and Sam and I went to him a couple of days before he was supposed to leave and said, Dad, I'm not going. We're staying home. We're going to stay with you and Mom, and we're not going to go to the feast, which is our convention. And he said, you got to take your wife and you got to go. If something happens, we'll let you know. So Sam and I drove to St. Petersburg, Florida. Took us 2 days to get there. This was one of the times I was scared to death of flying. So we drove to Florida. We got in 10 o'clock at night. We had something to eat. We went to bed. And at 5 o'clock in the morning, my mother-in-law comes in the room, knocks on the door, and she said, your mom's on the phone. And this was before cell phones. It was a landline, regular telephone. And I picked up the phone and said, Mom, what's up? She said, you need to come home. Your dad's failing. So we got in the car at 5 o'clock in the morning. We drove all day. It was the day of the San Francisco earthquake in 1989, where the freeways fell and they were at Candlestick Park and they were playing the World Series and the stadium was shaking. And we listened to that whole thing all the way home, all 20 hours home from Florida. And we hit New Jersey, the New Jersey Turnpike, right before you go over the GW Bridge, and we stopped at the Ben Franklin rest stop. And again, no cell phones back then. And I called to my office in Massachusetts, and I was talking to my sales manager and a couple of other and this was before I sold the business to my partner. And everybody was telling me that my partner was, going around the office saying terrible things and causing havoc, and the business was falling apart. My dad was dying. My life was falling apart. And I told my sales manager, my controller, I said, we're in Jersey. We're on our way home. My dad's passing, but I'll come to the office first. So we drove right through Providence, Rhode Island, which is where my parents lived. And my dad's, he could have gone at any time. Sam and I went into the office, had a company meeting, told everybody, what we had to do and that we'd be back sometime that following week. And went home and my dad died 2 days later. The company survived. We bought my partner out and continued to do the things that we did.
Your life, man, it's just But where you
I gotta write a book someday.
Yes.
My wife keeps telling me that. My kids tell me that. I gotta write a book someday.
That's incredible. What sage advice would you give people who are going through career pivots right now to keep them going forth? What would you say would you be a Charlie?
Yeah.
Would you be a Tom? What would you say to them in the trenches right now?
Well, look, good people are tough to find. Good people that work hard and work consistently are tough to find. So if you're one of those people that will give your employer, whoever, a good day's work every day, then that is worth the price of gold. And then the other thing I said earlier is, we all have DNA, and there are things that we have a proclivity for in our lives. And I think a lot of people are just in the wrong jobs, the wrong careers, the wrong business because they, really haven't taken stock and inventory as to, who they really are inside.
It's like I found HR during COVID.
Yeah.
And it's almost like, faith-based is like he calls the unequipped. And so I'm thinking, I don't know about this. Someone that has acute anxiety, has to be peopled around all day. I'm not quite sure about this.
When I was a kid, my dad used to read me the Little Red Engine book. And I remember I must have been 4 years old. And my dad would turn the pages and would read me this Little Red Engine book. And he would always say, the moral of that book is, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. And my dad would always tell me, just say, I know I can, I know I can, I know I can.
There you go.
And that's, that's always driven me. But, everybody's not like that. We're all made differently.
We are different.
But, and again, your work and your career is going to be something that you're going to do more than anything else. So find something you love. Find something that you can be passionate about. Don't be like my father-in-law who hated every day of 46 years of his work.
He had to settle for it.
Yeah.
Don't settle.
Yeah.
And how you, for me, only in that sage advice is, if you're doing things and you don't love it, it's okay to move along.
Yeah. And if you have a faith, knowing that there is
a
higher power and strength, and you're not always running your life, and sometimes you just have to give it up and
he's got it.
Know that the best results are going to happen over time, and sometimes answered prayer is no answer at all,
Sure.
and you just have to keep moving through and doing the things that you need to do to get out the other side.
Yes, sir. We're going to switch a little bit, and I have 2 questions that are kind of fun with the theme of Unplugged with Mel. You mentioned that you work a lot. You know, your career takes most of your time out of there. So what does Mike Moore do to unplug? How do you set that
Well, if you were to
time?
ask my family, they would tell you they've never seen it. I have a hat that my wife bought me. It's a what do they call those things? I forget the name of the hat, but it's a hat with a cool hat with a ribbon or orange ribbon around it, and when I have the hat on, that usually means I'm in a slowdown mode. So when people see me on Facebook or see me
I'm not sure I know the name of that hat.
a
either.
fedora.
Oh,
Fedora.
Okay.
Fedora, right. And matter of fact, they just bought one for my grandson, so we have to have a picture taken of him
matching
and his
fedoras.
fedora
Oh, my
and
goodness.
mine. But I love to sleep.
Me too.
I do. I when I get out of bed in the morning, I look back at that bed and say, I just can't wait to get back in. I love to sleep. My wife and I have cruised a lot over the years, and she calls them my floating naps, because I love to nap and I love to sleep. I enjoy playing golf. My whole family plays, and as a matter of fact, we just played together a couple of weeks ago. I am passionate about sports. I love sports.
What's your favorite sport?
My favorite sport to play was hockey.
Ooh.
I was a goalie. But I played baseball. I played third base, and I played first base. I played basketball, believe it or not. I was a point guard. Didn't play football. Played a lot of sports, and enjoyed sports. Are a passion of mine. And I suppose that's probably my downtime. If I'm not working, I'm probably watching sports
And taking a nap.
or taking a nap, or
Going to play golf.
going to play golf, or meditating on life as a whole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if we're wrapping up our podcast, so the last question is, what piece of advice that you received that made the influence that in your career and life in general, like one piece of advice that still resonate with you all these years?
I know I can.
I know I can.
Yeah.
Well, Mike, I appreciate you coming aboard and saying yes to Unplug with Mel. This is kind of the launch series that we're doing during HR Southwest.
This was fun.
It's good to get to know you more.
I'm gonna have to have a drink though, because now I'm like
We've
mentally
unplugged.
I'm mentally exhausted.
Yeah, we've unplugged, and that's kind of the process. But we hope this encourages you hearing Mike Moore's story. If you'd like to tell your story, you can find Mike on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn. And if you do reach out and connect with Mike, tell him you heard him on Unplugged with Mel, and we just really appreciate you joining us.
And if you need a Charlie in your life, I'd be happy to be that for you.
Oh, that's awesome. What a welcoming invitation for that. You be my Charlie?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you guys again for joining, and thank you for coming.
Thanks,
out,
Mel. It
Mike.
was a pleasure.